Okay, I want to thank Peter first, friend and collaborator. There he is. No, there he is. No, there he is. I don't know. Where are you, Peter? No, hang on. And that's him, yeah. Okay, he is a postmodern Sigmund. Okay, I hope I haven't done any violence to your personality yet. Okay, family violence, you saw it on that cartoon, or it's the cover of a book, a children's book in the Netherlands. Family violence is a very big problem everywhere. Love and violence are common bedfellows. And you can get hurt in the family more than perhaps even in war zones. And in the United States, for example, we have, in 2013, 1,500 children died from abuse and neglect, and more than 3 million children received preventative services. And in the UK, in England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, each year there are more than 50,000 children who are placed on the Child Protection Register. So you could say the family is also a danger zone or a minefield rather than only a safe haven. And I've worked as a child psychiatrist for 40 years with what's called multi-problem families, where child abuse and neglect and family violence were a daily currency. It's possible to look at interfamiliar cycles of abuse by saying there's tension is being built, then there's an incident, then there is reconciliation, often forced reconciliation, and then there may be some period of calm, and then it may start again. I'm talking more slowly than normally because there is a translator. Normally, no. Okay, family violence and non-mentalizing interactions. During emotionally charged interchanges in families, we trigger typically flight-fight modes. And intense emotion leads to a temporary loss of the capacity to think about the thoughts and the feelings of others. That turns off the mentalizing system just for a short time or for a longer time. And that, during that time, reduces each family member's ability to check and reflect on their own mental states, let alone align these with those of others. The parent's mind, when they've got children, becomes temporarily closed. They can't see the child from any perspective other than their own. And that often, when the child doesn't feel it's being responded to, intensifies the child's behavior to get through to the adult. Child is very distressed, and that increases the parent's arousal, and they may remember their own childhood helplessness that they see so clearly displayed in their child. And these kind of non-mentalizing interchanges escalate, and often the only way to stop it is to do something physical. Particular children often do that. Okay, so what is the effect? What are the effects on family violence on children? This is a child's view. But more generally, the effects of family violence on children is that several aspects of their social cognitive competencies are adversely affected. They're likely to have poor affect regulation. That leads to or contributes to later peer rejection and psychopathology. They refer less to their own internal states. They struggle to understand emotional expressions, particularly facial expressions. Now, family violence seems to be transmitted often from one generation to the next. And this is particularly likely when families find it difficult to reflect on family beliefs and patterns, and also when the related subjective experiences are absent. So, family violence may run in families, as we say, it runs in families as the repeated exposure of individual family members to violence and abuse gives rise to intergenerational transmitted beliefs and scripts, and particularly in those families which are vulnerable to social and biological influences. Okay. Violence begets violence. That is often the saying, and it applies particularly to those families where fear and hyperactivated attachments are produced and mentalizing capacity is reduced or destroyed. And family members revert to pre-mentalistic modes of thinking and acting. Okay, so you could say is that mentalizing others makes it hard to hurt people because we feel them from the inside. And physically violent acts are perhaps only possible if mentalizing is temporarily inhibited or decoupled, or if there's a permanent lack or loss of mentalizing capacity. This violence inhibition mechanism described by Blair implies that hurting others intentionally causes mental pain in the observer, especially when the observer is the cause of pain. Just common features in these families is hyper-alertness and one or more family members. They keep scanning all the time for emotional dysregulation in others. There are suddenly dramatic increased levels of arousal in more than one person. And fear of real or imagined abandonment may further push that up. They may seem to be addicted, in inverted commas, to engaging, even though they know the outcome, engaging in emotionally or physically abusive interactions. There is this overwhelming feeling of not being heard or understood. And then often we have this cutting off, becoming selectively mute or selectively deaf, unable or unwilling to respond in any other way than perhaps with violence. Okay. So this is a framework. How to treat family violence. I'm a clinician. These ideas Peter and I have developed over the last year. We've been writing together. We'll maybe finish at some point, not sure. Okay, so here's the first thing. That's MBT training, how you help people to get the therapist stance. Okay. Very important to start like that. Okay. Okay, not a little slower this time. Then let's work on saying, go on, you try it. That's what the trainer says. I don't know how you say in French. Okay. Okay, so the very ancient Roman technique of forced mentalizing is not indicated in cases of family violence. But family and multifamily mentalizing interventions can help. So I've got a whole range that I want to explain of these things that are trendily called mind-facing, mind-masking, mind-mapping, mind-sculpting, mind-scoping. And that last one, I haven't found a good one, minding the child narratives techniques, which I'll all introduce now. Mind mirroring, well, you know this infant-parent mirror work. I'm not going to talk about this, but this is work that some of you do, many of us have been doing for years, trying really to look at maybe videotaping 5 minutes of an interaction like that, and then getting the mother in this case, or the mother and father, to look at themselves in the mirror, to speculate about their own states of mind, or to also attribute states of mind to the child. So this is a well-worn techniques. For me, often something more important, more powerful, is what I would call the mental states mirroring that goes on in multifamily work. Multifamily work means that you work with 6, 7, or 8 families at the same time. Here, they're doing something, they're doing sculpts of their own family with clay. When you do that, you can see, if you look at the people right at the end of the table, they also look at what happens in other people. And they may sometimes see themselves mirrored in them. So, for example, I'll show you a technique that we use in multifamily work when we work with families where this is a particular issue. Typical multifamily technique, and parents may, develop curiosity in what happens in other people. They may see themselves mirrored, but may think that they do things differently. Okay, so multifamily group work is a setting to increase mentalizing, because observing other families and their interactions and speculating about their mental states can be very helpful. Seeing oneself or one's family mirrored in others who have similar problems and issues. We can observe and experience attachment phenomena in other families from a safe distance and without increased arousal. So we can practice on others. We can experiment with pretend mode. We can use video clips of problematic interactions for later video feedback when arousal is lowered, and which permits then what we call diachronic prompting now. I don't know what that is in French. Okay, good luck. So looking at back in the past, how, when you look at that video, what did you think, feel, and so on? You attribute mental states to them. How do you feel now when you watch it? And a hypothetical future. If you were to be in that situation, how might you think or feel or construct someone else's feelings and ideas? Okay. Here is a quote now, which I attribute to Peter Fonagy. He never said it, but he could have said it. Maybe he wants to say it. Multifamily group work is an optimal setting to increase mentalizing. Have you said that, Peter? Yes. Oh, liar. Okay, anyway, we've got it now on tape, okay? Okay, something totally different. Mind-facing techniques, mental state snapshots. So would you believe it? We use now selfies. Do you know what selfies are? Terrible disease, but we use them, okay? So the idea is family violence can occur when the mental state of a person is being misread or misinterpreted. And training in facial recognition of affect, the idea of the mind in the eyes, Baron Cohen, or I call it the mind in the face techniques, is less helpful than reading the mental states behind the face. Okay, and particularly in those families where there's violence, the aim is to rebalance the often excessive emphasis on the external, which we so often find. Okay, so feeling snapshots like these done during a session, so in an ordinary family session, just one family there, and we do it with selfies, okay? We call them taking or talking selfies. So a child, an adolescent, often we do it with adolescents, is asked to take 10 selfies before the next session. And then they bring them, and I sit down with them, and we examine the shots and speculate about the states of mind behind the face on each of those. We may bring other family members, and we look at the selfies of this one person, of the adolescent, for example, and they have to speculate about the mental states. They can say, for example, if thought bubbles came out of that head, what do you think would be in those thought or feeling bubbles? Then they may be asked, that's a parent, for example, to tell a story in the I form, pretending to be the individual. I'm John and I'm 15, and when I feel like that, I think that I remember there was a time. And then I often ask this family, can you select, before you come next time, 7 photographs, historic photographs, that tell the story of your family? Not 107, but 7. Okay. So I have no idea what the fights are like, which are the 7, but these can be looked at, and they tell a story. What's the point? Peter always asks me, oh, really good idea. What's the bloody point? Okay. Usually I haven't got a clue. He explains it to me. But today I'm trying to explain it to him. Okay. The polarity of self and other is brittle in violent families. The depleted understanding of the self undermined both motivation and capacity to see the other clearly. There's a lack of flexible movement between considering the self and other. It's either all about them or all about me. And violent families can benefit from experimenting with moving between different perspectives, finding a balance between the extremes of excessive speculation and the false certainty of presumption. I think, Peter, that's a quote from you. That's good, isn't it? Is it from you or is it from me? I don't know. Well, anyway. I think it's probably him. It's clever. Probably him. Okay, so sometimes patients feel a bit like that when we see them. What might it feel like being looked at by others? What might they be thinking and feeling? Have you been in that position? Okay. All right, so when I am in that position with people, I ask them often to use a real mirror. In some of the settings, we have got one-way mirrors, so there's a really beautiful mirror there, and you can look at yourself from the outside. And you can freeze, let's say, perhaps a particular movement or a particular situation to speculate from the outside. Okay, I have to move on. Masks. I love masks. And I want to talk about how we use masks with families where there's violence. Okay, Oscar Wilde famously said, give him a mask and he will tell you the truth. He's a good one to talk. Mm. Okay. Masks have different functions: disguise, concealment, entertainment, experimentation. Masks allow us to expose parts of ourselves that we are not usually willing to embrace in everyday life. Helps us to cover up who we are at the moment. It acts as a protective shield from our true feelings, above all shame. We can try on a different persona and let our imagination run wild. We can invite storytelling, and we can use masks to create mental states in others. Okay. I don't know whether you feel like that in the morning. I do often. This morning I thought I mustn't put on the funny mask. It's serious, very serious here. So when family members wear masks in sessions, they are less inhibited in their thoughts by the reactions of the other person, because we no longer fear, we no longer have to fear overt signals of disapproval. To the extent that we all invent ourselves from the reactions that others have to us, a Hegelian concept. Wearing a mask frees us up from again and again having to find ourselves in others, and momentarily makes us not depend on other people's reactions to feel validated. And with a mask, we may be able to find an identity that is beyond what we are, without the fear of frightening others with our own shame, our embarrassment, our aggression, or our disgust. And we no longer harbor fears of having one's identity distorted by seeing oneself non-contingently, or you could say incorrectly, reflected in the other. So we do techniques, we do in multifamily work in particular, very powerful, where we get children to make masks. Okay, we can also use masks to create mental states in others. And of course, masks also have something to do with protection often. So, for example, we use masks when we've got very intrusive parents, the child being very preoccupied with the face or with the state of mind of the parent. We can help those disguise the state of mind with the masks. Okay. But we can also make masks. And here are masks that traumatized US veterans have made, which symbolize or describe some of their feelings. I supervise some work with war veterans in the Netherlands, people who fought in Afghanistan and Iraq, who have made similar masks. These are all soldiers, okay? Now there's another a whole range of mapping the mind. We have mind scanning. We can look at get families to individuals and families to put in different emotions, feelings, but also aggression, usually in that big hole here. We can create maps that are volcano, an erupting volcano, and we can look at what happens, what grumbles here. How can you predict a volcano eruption or not? And that may help one to predict also what you do with the lava. Once the lava is flowing, how can you make yourself safe? So these are very kind of playful, but also often powerful metaphors to talk about. We can sculpt the mind by getting family members in clay to make a family sculpture of how they see the family at this particular stage. We can also, this is a family that a family from Naples made, that is that describes the particular conflict that family grapples with. Okay, and we can have life sculpture work, how maybe a family sees another family or see themselves in this kind of work. So here we have an example of multi-family work where each family is being asked to do a particular sculpture. So here you can get families to look and become curious about what the conflict might like, and we can, in fact, make a lot of little mini therapists. You can ask other families, invite them, what is the one thing that would need to change about this sculpture for the conflict perhaps to end in a different way. We sometimes use all sorts of funny methods to get families to look at each other in a different ways. We have invented a mummy scope, as you can see here. We have looking at the world through the mother's eyes. We have a daddy scope, that's the Asperger model. Okay. We have an innovative mind in the eyes intervention. A couple can look at each other's into their eyes. We've got a deflator for particular people who've got too much of an ego. You put that around there and you can let the air out. We have invented other important instruments to look at things like the darkness vision glasses to make the wrong business. Well, it's a mixture. Some people like that, even in my business. Okay, so, but I sell these models afterwards, if that is what you're alluding to. Okay. Okay, so I think it's particularly the Anna Freud prototype I want to promote on this occasion. But the Siege Jung type allows you to see unicorns. Okay. Emergency rose-tinted glasses are necessary equipment for anyone who works with violence. Can put them on. And of course, we do many other things that time doesn't allow me to explain now, because Peter is already signaling me, get on with it, will you? But maybe I did still show. Peter, how many minutes have I got? Point to me. 2. Why did you do that? That's incredible, this man. Oh, well, I know him well, though. Okay, well, I think I may then come to the conclusion, because I think he's been extra generous, okay? Okay. Intrafamily violence is likely to be connected with the disorganization of the attachment system. There is a close association between attachment, the use of physical aggression, and the collapse of mentalizing. Aggression and violent acts are tools to ensure the survival of the individual. If you remember, the term aggression comes actually from the Latin adcredere, meaning to approach, to seek out, indicating a link with proximity seeking. And when the family context gives insufficient resources to devote attention to the child, physical seeking out takes place, and if met with persistent misunderstanding or non-responsiveness, aggression on the child's part can be seen as an adaptive response. And I've already said that. In families with hyperactivated attachments, family members return to pre-mentalistic modes of thinking and acting. And above all, specific mentalizing techniques can assist to reduce family violence. Thank you for your interest.